Episode 28, The Rainbow Collection, originally posted June 22, 2013. When it comes to superheroes, I've always identified myself more as a fan of Marvel rather than DC. Sure, I was very familiar with all the major DC heroes, but this came mostly from watching cartoons as a kid of the Super Friends or Justice League. But as far as comics were concerned, it was all Marvel. But that changed in 2004 when a writer named Jeff Johns brought back a certain green-themed DC hero who had at this point been, dead, back to the land of the living with his Green Lantern Rebirth. He didn't just bring back Hal Jordan to life, he awakened an intense interest in me for DC Comics. In the years following Rebirth, Johns continued to expand the Green Lantern universe in creative ways that completely sucked in old and new readers like me. His stories and concepts breathed new life into the Green Lantern universe and propelled the central character, Hal Jordan, into first-tier status alongside Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. One of my favorite concepts brought in by Johns was the creation of the other colored lanterns, or what many like to call the rest of the Rainbow Corps. While on the surface this might seem like a rather obvious, bordering on campy concept, Johns put in the work to make sure each color's existence made sense. For years, Green Lantern already had his nemesis, a villain called Sinestro, who sported a similar construct-creating ring but was colored yellow. He also had another on and off enemy named Star Sapphire, who although didn't have a ring, shot out violet-colored lasers from a specially powered crystal. So you already had green, yellow, and violet, why not have the rest of the color spectrum? This is exactly what Johns asked, and he answered his own question by introducing the red, blue, orange, and indigo lanterns to complete the rainbow. Now, like I said, the reason why he managed to accomplish all this while avoiding any eye rolls and ridicule was that he gave a proper explanation for the existence of each color, which made perfect sense. And at the same time, he made sure each color wasn't just a rehash of another one. Aside from the basics of a protective shield in flight, each color had different characteristics and power sets that made them all unique. So, for a quick explanation, we have 7 colors in the spectrum, and each color represented or powered by a specific emotion. It was already established in the past that the color green represented willpower, and the color yellow was driven by fear. Of the 7 colors, green, as willpower, was positioned at the center of the spectrum. To the left of green were the negative emotions. Red for rage was at the far left as the extreme negative. Orange for avarice or greed was next. And finally, yellow for fear. To the right of green were the positive emotions. Blue for hope, indigo for compassion, and on the far right, violet for love. So what does this all mean to a toy collector like me? Well, more toys to collect, of course. Now, while I really did get into the whole Green Lantern comic, I didn't want to go out and start a full-blown Green Lantern collection. For me, a nice group of lanterns with each color properly represented was good enough. So this is what I set out to do. For green, I decided to use another Green Lantern other than Hal, as he was already taking up space as part of my Justice League display. Instead, I went with Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern of the 90s. Back when the Green Lantern comic sales were waning, DC opted to kill off Hal Jordan and replace him with a younger and hopefully hipper Lantern, and thus Kyle Rayner was created. Now, when Jeff Johns brought back Hal, Kyle actually managed to remain relevant. In fact, it seemed like Kyle Rayner actually ended up interacting the most with all the other colored lanterns. So for me, it made perfect sense to have him represent green in my little Rainbow Corps display. Next, we have yellow, the fear-powered corps comprised of the ugliest, most fear-inducing creatures in the galaxy. Again, the obvious choice to represent the Sinestro Corps, as they were properly known, is the founder, Sinestro himself. But just for the sake of variety in size, I decided to go with his second-in-command, Archilo. He's a beast of a figure, and I think he represents the aspect of fear quite nicely, don't you think? And eventually, Sinestro does pass on the core to Archilo, so it's all good. The red lanterns are unique in the fact that they don't really make any red constructs. Instead, they are rage-fueled powers manifested through corrosive blood that they project out of their mouth. Yup, killer vomit. I picked up Atrocitus, the leader of the Red Lantern Corps, off eBay from one of those sellers from China whose stuff could quite possibly be stolen directly from the toy factories there. Who knows? All I know is that they're usually sold for a cheaper price and don't usually come with any accessories. In the case of Atrocitus, it didn't really matter. The official retail version came with a red lantern, but in a genius move by Mattel, they sculpted Atrocitus with 2 closed fists, I guess to show off how angry he was. Unfortunately, this meant he had no way of holding his lantern, so not having it didn't really bother me much. To make up for it, I added this little pet cat and fellow Red Lantern Deck Star. Yes, I know I wanted just one representative per color, but come on, it's a rage-filled, blood-spewing cat. The Violet Core, properly known as the Star Sapphires, also created violet light constructs, but their true unique power is the ability to create special crystals used to entrap their enemies and over time, slowly reform them and ultimately convert them into Star Sapphires themselves. Carol Ferris, Hal Jordan's love interest, is probably the best-known Star Sapphire, and she was also bought for cheap from another eBay seller and like Atrocitus didn't have any accessories, which was fine by me. And then we have the Blue Lantern, Saint Walker. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Saint Walker and his Blue Lanterns represent the emotion of hope. On their own, Blue Lanterns aren't really made for battle. They are a rather passive group, and it is only when in the presence of a Green Lantern that their powers actually manifest. The Blue Ring has the ability to heal and even restore lost body parts. Plus, in return, they have the ability to supercharge any Green Lantern in their presence. And in case you were wondering what the reasoning was behind this sort of symbiotic relationship, John simply explained it by saying you cannot have hope without any willpower. Nice. Now the Orange Lanterns is Larfleeze. Yup, he's the only one. The Orange Lantern is powered by the emotion of avarice or greed. So unlike the other cores, Larfleeze refuses to share his power with anyone. In fact, his orange constructs are representations of all the people and creatures he has defeated and killed. It is their orange constructs that form his core. Now, I did see loose versions of this guy selling for cheap in a number of local shops, but again, these versions didn't come with any accessories. But unlike Atrocitus or Star Sapphire, this guy needed his lantern, so he could strike his most iconic pose of greedily holding tight his lantern and keeping it away from people's prying eyes. So yeah, I went ahead and got a brand new version of this guy. And finally, we have the Indigo Tribe, represented by Indigo 1. From their introduction, the Indigo Tribe was established as the least known and most mysterious tribe. They even spoke in their own indiscernible language. Powered by the power of compassion, their unique ability allowed them to mimic all the other rings' powers. I guess you could say they empathized with the other colors. Still later on, however, the truth behind the Indigo Tribe was finally revealed. It turned out that the tribe was actually composed of some of the worst and most despicable beings in the galaxy. And it was through the power of the indigo rings that they wore that transformed these criminals into doing good. So basically, it was through the power of compassion that these individuals were given a second chance to change for the better. Nice, nice. Unfortunately, at the time I was assembling my team, Mattel had yet to make any Indigo Tribe figure, so I had to settle for one from another company, DC Direct, who made their own similar-sized action figures. The trade-off being that they usually lacked articulation. In any case, however, I found a cheap figure of their leader, Indigo 1, again on eBay to stand in and represent her tribe on my display. Anyway, while Jeff Johns continued to introduce even more colors, more specifically the Black Lanterns through the story arc Blackest Night and the White Lanterns in Brightest Day, I figured that this would be a good place to stop in my collection. Anyway, since I originally wrote this post over 9 years ago, it's been quite a while since I actually seriously followed any Green Lantern comic book. Or any comic book for that matter. So unfortunately, I can't really give a good update on where all these colored lantern cores stand, or if any of them have been decimated. This was just a quick little collecting adventure for me that I actually managed to keep under control. How about that? So are there any other fans of all these additional colored cores? What's your favorite color? Let's talk in the comments below. Tell me your story. Thanks for watching Stories from the Toy Shelf Redux. If you enjoyed this story, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to help me tell more. Until the next one.